joining us. My name is Chris Conway, joined here by Danielle Melendez and Jerry Whitcott. We did our presentation on first break all the rules, what the world's greatest managers do differently. This book was written by Marcus Buckingham and Kirk Hoffman, and it essentially encompasses over 25 years of research compiled of interviews conducted with over 400 companies. They interviewed 80,000 managers in an effort to find out what the greatest managers do differently from normal managers. What we found in this book, and what paints a really nice picture of some of the findings of the organization, they came up with the 12 questions. Now, the 12 questions in the book actually illustrates it very well. It follows a mountain climbing scheme, which we're going to get into, and what is kind of the basis for our presentation. But the 12 questions kind of encompass what is needed to identify if your organization is healthy. Essentially meaning, do you have great managers working in your company, and are they treating your employees the way they should be treated? So what we found also in this book, there's no bias. No two managers are the same, but they do have a lot of the same characteristics, which we're going to go into in the next few slides here. So that's a brief summary. Base camp. So following the mountain climbing analogy, base camp is the what do I get section of the mountain. So this tends to be on the onboarding stage. So newer employees, they're going to really be asking this question: what do I get out of this organization? And these are the two questions that follow. So the two questions are, do I know what is expected of me at work? And do I have the equipment and material I need to do my job right? So the first question, do I know what is expected of me at work? Great managers in these situations, they will hold regular meetings. Now, holding regular meetings is very crucial. It tends to lead to higher employee engagement. And employees feel like they're being developed, and which we're going to get into in a few slides from now. But holding regular meetings is very essential. Setting clear expectations in these meetings is one of the most basic needs for an employee. Employees need to feel like they know what they're doing at work. Clarity of expectations needs to be at the highest level in this stage. Without expectations, employees are going to feel lost. And in the early stages of employment, you're going to see a lot of turnover because employees really don't know what they're going to be doing at work. The next question, do I have the equipment and material needed to do my job right? Now, first, great managers will select for talent in this stage. Now, what I mean for that is you gotta have the right job fit. I know at work, at my personal work, I have seen too many managers hired just to get bodies into the position to fill the needs of the organization, and this essentially leads to turnover. Not only turnover, but it also leads to poor job fit, where people are put in sales positions, uncomfortable positions for them. They really don't have the talent needed for that position, and they ultimately fail. They ultimately get worked out of the business because either voluntarily or involuntarily. It's never a pretty picture, so we want to really make sure that we're not only selecting for talent, but we're also providing the tools needed. I had a situation at work as well where I was promoted to a different district. And what I found when I got into this district was the person that held my position prior really did all of the work in that position. So what I mean by that is the employees would send that person all the problems for which they needed resolved, never really showing these people where to find the specific resources to correct the problems themselves. Ultimately, they felt like they didn't have any ownership of any situations, and it really led to a lot of employee morale issues, especially in the support roles that they're in. So what I did when I first got in there, I essentially provided them with the tools needed. So I showed them different online resources in which to research different issues. I actually had one employee come up to me and actually say, you know, I never really had this ownership of a problem before, and she was able to resolve everything. It worked out very well. She was very grateful. So I got the personal satisfaction of knowing that I was able to show somebody the way. So that's a good example of, you know, this particular question. That particular question will allow you to satisfy your employees' needs. Camp 1 is the next stage of the mountain. It's the what do I get stage. What we mean by this is, what do we get out of our jobs? Are we at our job? Are we able to do the best we can every day? Are we getting recognition at work? We got to make sure that we're, you know, satisfying these needs of the employees, and we'll get into a little bit more detail in the next few slides here. So the third question of the 12 questions: at work, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? Now, great managers, we found through a lot of extensive research, really harp on focusing on the strengths and not the weaknesses of the employee. The reason behind this is, if you focus on the weaknesses, you're really not going to get the engagement that you need from the employee, simply because they're going to feel like they're failing all the time. You know, if you coach to the specific weaknesses and they just don't particularly have that talent that they need for this position, they're going to feel that, you know, they're not going to take ownership of the situation, and they're going to ultimately fail. Focusing on the strengths, however, you're going to see a lot of employee engagement. Now, you're going to see a lot of growth potential. You're going to see these people will essentially own the situations that they're put in, and they will ultimately succeed. You'll see a lot more employee engagement if you're focusing on the strengths. And this comes through, again, you're going to want to make sure that you're coaching on a regular basis. You're not going to want to do this in your yearly or even your monthly annual review or performance reviews. You're going to want to do this on a consistent basis. In the last 7 days, have I received recognition or praise for good work? Now, in this situation, great managers are going to let employees know that their work is valued and appreciated. Now, I, in particular, in my role, I'm in a support role, I was challenged to come up with a particular situation where I would recognize employees kind of on the spot. And I never really thought of how much this was needed, but you know, just going through, we implemented a golden ticket system where on the spot, we would see employees doing the right thing. We would see employees doing operationally sound practices, and you know, we'd give them a reward for it. So it was really personally gratifying and also gratifying to the employees as well. This recognition program, it improves morale, it enhances loyalty, and it helps build a supportive work environment. You know, if everybody's helping each other and everybody's giving praise, you're going to see a lot more positivity in the workplace, a lot less negativity. People are going to want to work harder for you. Does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? The great managers in this situation are going to provide consistent and timely feedback. Again, going back to the annual reviews, the performance reviews, the monthly one-on-ones. You're going to want to do this type of recognition more frequently, this interaction more frequently. You're going to want to make sure that you're thanking the employees. You know, you don't want to go overboard, but you want to make sure you're thanking the employees for their contributions. And you want to make sure that you're providing feedback, whether, you know, it be positive or constructive. This helps develop the employee. The employee is not going to really know where to go if you're not really conversing with them, if you're not following up with them. So it's important that they know that they're being developed, and you're going to have those conversations on a consistent and timely basis. Again, it's going to promote growth. Ultimately, most employees really want to grow in their organizations. That's the purpose for them being there. So you're going to want to satisfy that need by helping to develop them. And is there somebody at work that encourages my development? Now, personally, in this question resonated with me with having a mentor. So you really want to make sure that you're talking to your employees about not only developmental opportunities within the particular location, but you also want to make sure that they're reaching out and networking with different people, and possibly gaining a mentor. A mentor could help them with different situations, whether it's whether they're stakeholders or not. They could be completely outside the company. It's important to have somebody to bounce ideas off and help in the developmental stage. It increases employee motivation, and ultimately it increases employee retention. Employee retention is very employees leaving the company. It's very costly, so you want to make sure that you're retaining the talent, and the only way to do that is to encourage development. Now I'm going to pass it off to Danielle, and she's going to go over Camp 2.
Okay, so now we are going to focus on do I belong here? And one important component on this base camp too is employee retention. At work, do my opinions matter? An employer can handle this situation in many different ways. It really is about the manager and the employee. For instance, an employee can go to the manager and say, oh, there's something wrong that we need to deal with, or there's something wrong with our production, or anything like that. And what really the manager needs to consider is, okay, is this employee complaining, or is the employee giving me an idea? The more dynamic manager will focus on the idea and really trying to create a positive relationship with the employee, and have the employee feel as though they can go to the manager for with any issues. Now, with retention, the employee wants to know that the manager will consider their opinions. And employee retention, you want to make sure that your employee knows that your opinions matter. This also leads us to discussion and productive conflict. We want the employees to really engage and to be able to have discussions regarding these issues. Does the mission, purpose of my company make me feel my position is important? Here, there's two ways to look at this. First is an example of an employee who basically he feels underappreciated, and therefore he is also undercompensated. Now, as an employee, you would probably want to look elsewhere. However, this specific employee went to his manager, and he said, listen, I have great ideas, I'm a great employee, I enjoy working here, but I do feel underappreciated, and I don't feel as though I'm given enough attention, and I know that I can help the company grow. So what happened was the manager basically said, okay, I hear you, I want to work with you, I appreciate you as an employee. And this is important because what happened was they started having more meetings in the office and different departments coming together. And in the end, they created a new service within the company, and which created more value, not only for the company, but for retention and for creating more value for the employee. Now, in first Break All the Rules, they really discussed casting is everything. So you may bring in an employee and they have all the workings of in accounting. However, if they do not fit, or if they do not work well with others, if they don't find enjoyment in their job, you can find a lot of issues. So you need to make sure that putting each employee in the right position is very important, and does make the mission or purpose of the company a make or break, because it's an important issue. Communication is key. We want managers and employees to communicate. We want them to make sure that they know what their purpose is. They know what the mission is for each position. Are my coworkers committed to doing quality work? Here, I particularly enjoy this topic because there's a sense of, in First Break All the Rules, they discuss how the manager needs to bring in the employee and develop them, develop on their skills, develop on their abilities. And so it really starts with the manager and really trying to get to know the employee and all of their value. And they're really adding to their skills and attributes. Another interesting way to view this is through a generation gap. We have millennials and Generation X, and in the workplace, according to Shea Hall, there really is a disconnect sometimes from employees and employers, and a Generation X may work in a different way than a millennial may work, and I've seen this in my own personal experience at work. We work with business compliance and business growth for a trade association, and we invest a lot of time, money, and energy in honing in on generational issues, because the future of businesses, there's a lot of changes, a lot of development, and this connects to the quality of work, because what a Generation X employee may feel is different than a millennial. They may think that one may think there's more value in one thing and the other in another. And it's very important for business success that they're on the same page and that there is the quality that everyone is looking for. Do I have a best friend at work? Here, there's a journal article on making positive relationships in the workplace. And here we found that there are work and personal life, they do intertwine. And at work, we do need a support system. We spend most times with our coworkers. So you really do want to create those positive relationships, and you really want to grow that. And there are studies that have shown that personal growth and professional growth come out of these friendships and relationships between coworkers. Now, there are boundaries. It's complicated for managers to be very close with their employees, to be best friends with your employees, or just very close, because if there is an issue and you have to let someone go, not for personal reasons, but maybe there's not enough funding or something like that in your company, you don't want to have that awkward situation. So there's a term of keeping at an arm's length. So basically, you don't want to get too close with your employee, but you don't want to keep so distance. It's really a balancing act. And I know that in my work, there is a focus on creating friendships within the company. We have weekly lunches together. We have breakfast every other week to see what's going new in the company, as well as new in the personal life. Any celebrations, we mourn together. We really try to create a family atmosphere in the workplace. And so far, it's created for me a lot of trust. I have been able to work well with different departments that maybe I wouldn't have even known they could help me create a better product that I work on. at my job. So I think that's it creates more value in the business, and I think that having friendships at work is very positive. However, you don't want to create any awkward situations when there may be a downturn in your business. So now I'll turn it over to Jerry.
Thank you very much, Danielle. In analyzing the last few questions of the 12 questions used to attract, focus, and keep the most talented employees, I was presented with an interesting and challenging professional quandary, which I'll share with you in a moment. The final stages are the bridge of Basecamp 2, which Danielle presented, questioning, do I belong here? And Basecamp 3, which asks, how can we all grow? Successful navigation to and through Basecamps 2 and 3 are necessary to attain the summit, which we'll discuss a little later in this presentation. Authors Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer seem to support and encourage their position in their article, The Power of Small Wins, taken from the Harvard Business Review's 10 must-reads on teams. Amabile and Kramer found that their analysis of knowledgeable workers' diaries nothing more contributed to a positive inner work life than making progress in meaningful work. This suggests that managers have more of an influence than they may realize over an employee's well-being, motivation, and their creative output. In order to accomplish the goal of assisting employees to advance and strive toward the summit, a manager should be able to assist that employee to have positive responses to the questions, in the last 6 months, have I talked to somebody about my progress? And this last year, have I had the opportunities to work, learn, and grow? This portion of the mountain climb needs to remind a good manager of the words of Theodore Roosevelt. People don't care how much a manager knows or how much you know until they know how much you care. Basecamp 3 is a bold show of concern and caring for your people, helping to guide them through the daily struggles while simultaneously guiding them along a path that takes advantage of each individual's unique skill set and talents, merging the members and their individuality into an effective team. Both of the questions mentioned require significant preparation and skill by the manager in order to acquire positive responses. This requires a manager in question to have navigated an individual to be able to respond positively to all of those questions used to evaluate workplace strength. Positive responses to those questions show the commitment and respect of the employee and the positive influence of an effective manager. Once a manager has assisted their staff to navigate Basecamp 3, it is possible, but not necessarily required, that they will attain the summit of the mountain. According to Buckingham and Kaufman, the summit is that point where your focus is clear, you feel a recurring sense of achievement, as though the best of you is being called upon and the best of you responds each and every day. The summit is the ultimate goal of any manager and should be the goal of any employee. It's that point where, according to Buckingham and Kaufman, you look around and you see others who also seem to thrill in the challenge of their work, buoyed by your mutual understanding and shared purpose. You look out and forward to the challenges marching at you over the horizon. It's the point where your knowledge of the job and leadership of your staff make going to work each day a joy. I offer to you this cautionary tale, however. Early in my banking career and my youthful impatience, I believed that I had attained the summit. I believed the summit was that point where I felt I knew everything there was to know about the job. I often stated that I could run my bank branch with my eyes closed. Although I was technically knowledgeable, my workplace experiences as a leader and my current analysis of First Break All the Rules and our current text have led me to realize that I had faltered through Basecamps 2 and 3. What I've subsequently come to realize is that although I may have been technically sound in my individual role as an employee, I neglected to nurture and engage my coworkers and staff, and thus my team. According to John Maxwell in his book, The 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork, I more specifically had neglected to engage the law of the edge. I failed to transfer ownership for work to those who execute the work, and I didn't create an environment where each team member wants to be responsible. I had led a fine branch with good personnel, and I had learned the technical skills needed to operate that bank branch. My knowledge of these things led me to be excited about my job each and every day. It did not, however, engage or involve my teammates. They continued to just struggle to get through the day. To use Buckingham and Kaufman's mountain climbing analogy, I failed to lead my team successfully to and through Base Camp 1, discussed earlier in the presentation by Chris. Although I may have felt a certain level of mastery in my job, I had deluded myself into believing that I had reached the summit. I failed to bring anyone along with me. The inference or lesson that I've taken from that experience is that while I was receiving strong leadership from my supervisor and mentor, I loved my job and I was good at it. I was not sharing that enthusiasm with my team. The stage had been set for the next phase of my career, and that was to find the right fit for my skills, talents, and interests. This is something that, again, Buckingham and Kaufman mention at length in Chapter 6 of their book. A change in leadership at my employer at the time had led me to seek my own change in leadership and style. I changed institutions, a change that ultimately did lead me to attain the summit, and work with a team that became the #1 sales and customer service branch in New York State. Since that time, 5 of my 7 sales and service staff have moved on to manage their own businesses or accept other senior leadership positions. Many of the teller staff that worked with me have advanced into leadership or management roles, and most are, to this day, successful by any measure that you would choose. Throughout this semester, we've spent time studying what skill set a manager should focus on to enhance their skills. Authors and researchers Arthur Buckingham and Kurt Kaufman, in their book, First Break All the Rules, state that their research yielded that talented employees need great managers. They go on to state that how long that employee stays at a company and how productive he or she is ultimately determined by their relationship with their immediate supervisor. Similarly, our textbook for the semester, Developing Management Skills, What Great Managers Know and Do, states that the single most important element of every great workplace is the trust between employees and management. As with many of the management texts that are available in any bookstore, there are purported new strategies on how to manage and indisputable laws on how to be a great manager. We've had the good fortune this semester to have used a textbook that proposes practical advice on what great managers know and do. This practical advice seems to be supported by the meta-analysis statistical work of the authors of First Break All the Rules. In First Break All the Rules, it's recommended that managers focus the majority of their efforts on the best and brightest on their team. Buckingham and Kaufman even go so far as to say that investing in your best is the only way to reach excellence. Similarly, Baldwin, Balmer, and Rubin in our textbook paraphrase Buckingham and Kaufman and recommend that a great manager must invest in your high performers and divest the low ones. Taken further, both books discuss reassigning weaker employees to jobs that match their talents or make the decision to terminate to allow that employee to find a better match. These are just a few examples of how our text for this semester complements and implements the recommendations of First Break All the Rules. The final conclusion is that a manager needs to find a style that matches their talents. You need to read varied texts to learn more about your style and what you can do to improve your management skills. And always engage your staff and get their buy-in to the goals of the team. If you have engaged staff members committed leadership, and solid goals focusing on expanding upon the strengths of the team, then the synergy of each individual's strengths will drive you to the summit and the success that comes with it.